Tonight's stream is dedicated to the 1111 code. I'd like to welcome you to the House of Thrillers. I'm Scully, the author that reads to you. I read my novels with sound effects and video that goes along with the story. So if you like books on tape, or you want to cure a little boredom, stick around, subscribe to the channel. It's that little red button below the video. And if you're on the phone, don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss a thing. Tonight, we're going to be reading The Life of Pi by Jan Martel. So buckle your seatbelt, it's quite the ride, and we'll see you on the other side. We're in the exterior of the Pondicherry Zoo in India, 1961. A magical fairy tale world in collage. Images of fantastic creatures striped and spotted, hoofed and horned. Goats and warthogs mingle in an open field. A baby giraffe tries to reach leaves over a fence. Rhinos roll happily in rich red mud, looking like giant muddy boulders. While nearby, black and white Malayan tapirs cool themselves in watering holes. Exotic monkeys with comical faces cling lovingly to one another, swing from trees, climb over one another, prance and screech. A proboscis monkey with a Jimmy Durant nose pointing out through the plane of the screen. Flamingos strut about in the aviary, their pink feathers reflected in the water. A sloth droops lazily from a tree branch, unfazed, while a nearby hummingbird zips manically from flower to flower like Tinkerbell. The Pondicherry Zoo is a children's paradise nestled in a botanical garden. The writer and voiceover. You were raised in a zoo? We're back at the exterior of the Pondicherry Zoo in India, 1961. There's a flurry of activity in the animal clinic behind a monitor lizard that wanders the main path. Zoo workers gather in the doorway, talking excitedly. Adult Pi says, born and raised in Pondicherry, in what was the French part of India. My father owned the zoo, and I was delivered on short notice by a herpetologist who was there to check on the Bengal monitor lizard. The zoo owner, the father in his late 20s, hurries down the path as quickly as his heavy leg brace will allow, and hurries into the animal clinic. Adult Pie says, Mother and I were both healthy. But the poor lizard escaped and was trampled by a frightened cassowary. We enter Pie's home in the kitchen, Montreal in the day, a modest row house. There is a French influence to the decor, along with books and artwork that celebrate the spiritual. Pie Patel, 50, intelligent, Indo-Canadian, cooks an Indian meal. The often skeptical writer, late 30s, a disheveled French Canadian, watches Pie. Adult Pie says, the way of karma, the way of God. To which the writer responds, I assumed your father was a mathematician because of your name. Oh, far from it. I was named after a swimming pool. There's a swimming pool named Pie? You see, my Uncle Francis was born with too much water in his lungs. They say the doctor swung Francis around by the ankles to clear the water out, and that's what gave him the huge chest and skinny legs. It made him such a good swimmer. The writer is amused. Is Francis actually your uncle? You said he was friends with your father. Pa says, I call him Mama G. My honorary uncle, my father's best friend, my swimming guru. We're at the exterior of Ashram Swimming Pool in Pondicherry, 1966. Adult Pie says, I trained with him 3 times a week at the ashram. His lessons would save my life in the end. A young Indian boy, Pie at age 5, surfaces from a pool, gasping. He looks up at the large chest and skinny legs of Mama G. Mama G reaches down to scoop Pie out of the water. Mama G says, a mouthful of water will not harm you, but panic will. Mama G carries Pie back over to the water's edge. Remember to breathe. Don't hold your breath, good boy. Mama G unceremoniously tosses Pie back in. We fade to the interior of Pie's home in the kitchen. Adult Pie, regarding lunch, I hope you don't mind vegetarian. No, not at all. And your name? Adult Pie says, To which the writer replies, You were going to tell me how you got your name, I think. I got it from something Mama G once told my father. Most travelers collect postcards or teacups on their journeys, but not Mama G. Mama G collects swimming pools. He swims in every pool he comes upon. We're at the exterior of the Piscine Molitor in Paris, 1959. Mama G stands admiring the Piscine Molitor, a pool of sparkling magnificence, attractive French men and women in bathing suits, a setting, a celebration of idealized beauty. One day, Mama G said to my father that all the pools in the world, the most beautiful was a public pool in Paris. That the water there was so clear you could make your morning coffee with it. That a single swim there changed his life. Mama G dives into the crystal clear water and we follow, taking in the divine miracle of his underwater journey across the pool. Before I was born, he said to my father, if you don't want your son to have a clean soul, you must take him one day to swim in the Piscine Molitor. I never understand why my father took this so much to heart. But he did, and I was named Piscine Molitor Patel. Pi at age 11 leans against the railing of a balcony, reading Les Mystérieux, the Mysterious Island, by Jules Verne. Adult Pi and a voiceover. Imagine me trying to explain that name to my schoolmates. I barely made it to the age of 11 before. A boy, bully number 1, calls up to him from the courtyard below. Hey, Piscine. Pi glances down, all the boys in the courtyard watching him. Are you pissing right now? Pi freezes. The other boys laugh uncontrollably. Another boy says, look at him, he's pissing. Adult Pi says, with one word, my name went from an elegant French swimming pool to a stinking Indian latrine. I was pissing everywhere. Boys in school uniform kick a ball. Pi attempts to join. Bully number 2 intercepts the pass. He says, no pissing in the courtyard. We fade to the interior of a science class, 1972. Adult Pi. Even the teacher started doing it, not deliberately, of course. The science teacher says, so then what might occur if we release gas too quickly? Pissing? Pi's aghast. Several students splutter and howl, whispering the slip to others. Laughter ripples around the room. All eyes on Pie. The boy says, he said pissing. That's enough. Order. Adult Pie voiceover. When we returned the next year for our first day of school, I was prepared. The interior of an Indian history class. Class is held in a large open room. Roll call. Boy says, present, sir. History teacher says, Paiseen Patel. Pi, age 12, rises. Crosses to the front. Good morning. I am Paiseen Molitor Patel, known to all as. He writes Pi on the board. Pi, the 16th letter of the Greek alphabet. Pi writes Pi, then quickly charts out a general notion of concept on the chalkboard. He continues, which is also used in mathematics to represent the ratio of any circle's circumference to its diameter, an irrational number of infinite length, usually rounded to 3 digits as, he writes 3.14. 3.14 pi. Pi underlines his name, faces the class. The history teacher. Very impressive, Pi. Now sit down. Writer and voiceover. And from then on, you were Pi? Well, no, not quite. As Pi returns to his seat, bully number 2 leans forward, whispering, nice try, pissing. Adult Pi and voiceover. But I still have the whole day ahead of me. French class was next. Pi repeats his act in French. 3.14159265 on the board. Je m'appelle Paiseen Molitor Patel. Did Pi. Then geography. Class is held out of doors in a courtyard. Pi at a portable chalkboard writes and says 3.14159265. These are the first 20 decimal places of pi. My last class of the day was mathematics. A librarian runs down the hall, a huge book tucked under his arm, followed by dozens of students. He reaches Pi's class, pushes his way through the crowd. Closes on Pi, writing digits. We pull back. The entire chalkboard is filled with numbers. All watching are stunned. The librarian compares Pi's writing to the math book. It is right. He's really doing this. Students clap and cheer, even the bullies. Several chant along with him as he writes. 14931. Pi, pi, pi. By the end of that day, I was Pi Patel, school legend. We're back at the interior of Pi's kitchen in the day. The writer laughs, then ventures out on a new topic. Mama G tells me you're a legend among sailors too, out there all alone. Adult Pi, I don't even know how to sail, and I wasn't alone out there. Richard Parker was with me. Richard Parker? Mama G didn't tell me everything. He just said I should look you up when I got back to Montreal. So what were you doing in Pondicherry? Writing a novel. By the way, I enjoyed your first book. The new one, is it set in India? No, Portugal, actually, but it's cheaper living in India. Oh, well, I look forward to reading it. You can't. I threw it out. 2 years trying to bring it to life, and then one day I sputtered, coughed, and died. I'm sorry. The writer shrugs, making light of it. I was in a coffee house in Pondicherry one afternoon, mourning my loss, when this old man at the next table struck up a conversation. Yeah, Mama G, he does that. When I told him about my abandoned book, he said, so a Canadian who's come to French India in search of a story? Well, my friend, I know an Indian in French Canada who has the most incredible story to tell. It must be fate that the two of you should meet. I haven't spoken about Richard Parker in so many years. What has Mama G already told you? He said you had a story that would make me believe in God. Pi laughs. He would say that about a nice meal. As for God, I can only tell you my story. You will decide for yourself what you believe. Fair enough. Let me see then where to begin. We cut to a montage of Pondicherry, 1954. 1954. We're on the shoreline, bicycles and pedestrians, policemen in round, flat-top French hats, adult Pi and voiceover. Pondicherry is the French Riviera of India. In the streets closest to the ocean, you might think we're in the south of France. We fade to the exterior of the ashram street in 1954. Gray ashram buildings which give us way to images of the Pondicherry Canal, 1954. The canal, and just beyond it, Indian Pondi. Adult Pi and voiceover. A few blocks inland, there's a canal. Just beyond that is the Indian Pondicherry. The Muslim quarter, women in headscarves pass men baking flatbread over coals. The mosque in the background. And the Muslim quarter is just to the west. fade to the interior of Pi's home. When the French handed Pondicherry back to us in 1954, the town decided that some of the commemoration was in order. The exterior of the zoo entrance. The sign on the gate reads, Jardin Botanique de Pondicherry. My father, who was a clever businessman, came up with one. He ran a hotel, and he got the idea to open a zoo in the local botanical gardens instead. Father oversees a sign painter, as the painter who adds the words "and zoo" to the sign. We're in the exterior of the nursery. Women workers plant and dig in the botanical gardens nursery as Mother passes by. She admonishes a worker who pulls up a sapling with too much force. Adult Pi and voiceover. As it also happened, my mother was a botanist in the gardens. They met, married, and a year later my brother Ravi was born. I came 2 years after that. The interior of Pi's home, outer room Montreal. Writer says it sounds magical growing up, and the writer stops, realizing that Pi's eyes are closed in prayer. The writer watches in awkward silence, his head half bowed. Adult Pi says, Amen, let's eat. Writer said, I didn't know Hindus said amen. Catholic Hindus do. Catholic Hindus? We get to feel guilty before hundreds of gods instead of just one. But you're a Hindu first. None of us knows God until someone introduces us. I was first introduced to God as a Hindu. There are 330 million gods in the Hindu religion. How can I not come to know a few of them? We're outside the Patel home. Young Pi, 5, and Ravi listen to Mother quietly singing a gentle tune as she kneels before their home, using rice powder to draw a column pattern. A geometric design meant to bring the home prosperity. Pi says, I met Krishna first. Mother, Yashoda once accused baby Krishna of eating dirt. Tut tut, you naughty boy. You shouldn't do that. We fade into Pi's bedroom at night. It is raining outside. Mother lies in bed with Pi as they continue sharing this story for the 1000th time. Mother's voice plays over. Pi says, but he didn't. Mother, that's what he told her. I didn't eat dirt. No, well, then open your mouth. So Krishna opened his mouth. Pa opens his mouth in imitation. His mother, and what do you think Yashoda saw? Pa says, what? She saw in Krishna's mouth the whole entire universe. Pa in Ravi's bedroom at night. Pa's made a tent out of his blanket, a flashlight glowing beneath the covers. In his tent, he flips through the pages of a Hindu comic book, enthralled by the story of Krishna. The panels of the comic book show Krishna's mouth falling open, revealing stars and planets, the universe unfolding in wondrous detail. Fading to the Pondicherry temple courtyard. At night, a tank ceremony is about to begin. The tank is a square reservoir the size of a soccer field. Pa's family sits among the crowd on the steps that lead down to the water. Adult Pa in a voiceover. The gods were my superheroes growing up. Hanuman, the monkey god, lifting an entire mountain to save his friend from Lakshmana. Ganesh, the elephant-headed, risking his life to defend the honor of his mother Parvati. Vishnu, the supreme soul, the source of all things. Vishnu sleeps, floating on the shoreless cosmic ocean, and we are the stuff of his dreaming. Father, with quite sincerity. Spectacle, don't let the stories and pretty lights fool you boys. Religion is darkness. Adult Pa in a voiceover. My dear Appa believed himself part of the new India. As a child, he'd had polio. He used to lie in bed, racked with pain, wondering where God was. In the end, God didn't save him. Western medicine did. We're out at the Munnar tea fields in the day. Rocky mountain tops jut up through a sea of clouds and mist. Adult Pa says in a voiceover, I met Christ in the mountains when I was 12. We were visiting relatives, tea growers in Munnar. It was our third day there. Ravi and I were terribly bored. Ravi walks up to Pa, coins in hand, and whispers, Challenge, I'll give you 2 rupees. Run to the church and drink the holy water. In the church, Pa leans down to the font beside the door and drinks. He's about to leave again when he notices the stations of the cross depicted on plaques that encircle the church. Priest, you must be thirsty. Here, I brought you this. Not knowing what else to do, Pa takes the glass and drinks. An awkward pause as he searches for something, anything, to say. He finally points up to one of the paintings. Why would a God do that? Why would he send his own son to suffer for the sins of ordinary people? The priest smiles down upon Pa. Because he loves us, son. God made himself approachable to us, human, so we could understand him. We can't understand God in all his perfection, but we can understand God's Son and his suffering as we would a brother's. We're in the interior of Pa's dining room in Montreal, intercut, continuous, adult pie that made no sense, sacrificing the innocent to atone for the sins of the guilty. What kind of love is that? We're at the exterior of the plantation home, Munar, 1973 in the day. Ravi and other kids play cricket. Pa sits by a stream, lost in thought. Adult Pa in voiceover. But this son, I couldn't get him out of my head. We fade to the interior of the Catholic Church in Munar, 1973, day 41. Pa stands quizzing the priest near the altar. If God is so perfect and we're not, why would he want to create all this? Why does he need us at all? Priest, all you have to know is that he loves us. God so loved the world that he gave his only son. This son taught us to love one another. The priest's words continue as Pa leans in listening. Adult Pa in voiceover. The more I listened to the priest, the more I came to like this Son of God. The interior of Pa's bedroom. Pa kneels, smiling, in an attitude of worship. Thank you, Vishnu, for introducing me to Christ. Adult Pa voiceover. I came to faith through Hinduism and I found God's love through Christ. But God wasn't finished with me yet. We fade to the exterior of the Muslim quarter. As Pa wanders through the Muslim quarter, the call to prayer plays out over a loudspeaker affixed to the nearby mosque. Pa watches as people pray. Adult Pa and voiceover. God works in mysterious ways, and so was he introduced himself again. This time by the name of Allah. He crosses inquisitively up the few steps of a mosque in the Muslim quarter, looking inside, where dozens of the faithful are lined up row upon row praying. The speaker on top of the mosque plays the Muslim call to prayer. As we fade to the interior of the Pa family home, Pa is out in front of the house kneeling on a prayer mat, repeating a prayer. Father passes by with friends. He stops to watch Pa. Father sits at the dinner table with his family. The servant offers a dish of lamb to the father only. Father pops a bite into his mouth, savoring it. The father says, "This lamb is exquisite. It's the best dish on the table. You're all missing out." As he chews, Father notices pie completing a blessing. Father, you only need to convert to 3 more religions, Piscine, and you will spend your life on holiday. Ravi, laughing, "Are you going to Mecca this year, Swami Jesus, or to Rome for your coronation as Pope Pius?" "You stay out of this, Ravi. Just as you like cricket, Pa has his own interest. "No, Gita, Ravi has a point. No, you cannot follow 3 different religions at the same time, Piscine." Pa says, "Why not?" Father, "Because believing in everything at the same time is the same as not believing in anything at all." "He's so young, Santosh. He's still finding his way." "And how can he find his way if he does not choose a path?" So Pi, "Listen, instead of leaping from one religion to the next, why not start with reason? In a few hundred years, science has taken us farther in understanding the universe than religion in 10,000 years. "That is true. Your father's right. Science can teach us more about what's out there." With a hand on her heart, "But not what is in here. Art, music, literature, they all spring from our faith." Father says, "Some eat meat, some eat vegetable. I do not expect us all to agree about everything, but I would much rather have you believe in something I don't agree with than to accept everything blindly. And that begins with thinking rationale. Do you understand?" Pa nods. "Good." Pa says, "I would like to be baptized." Father and mother react. Ravi stifles a laugh. We're at the exterior of Pie Street during the day. He walks down the front steps of his new row house, stretching and rubbing his belly at the end of a good meal. The writer follows. "So you're a Christian and a Muslim. And a Hindu, of course. And a Jew, I suppose." "Oh, well, I do teach a course on the Kabbalah at the university, and why not? Faith is a house with many rooms." The writer says, "But no room for doubt." Pa says, "Plenty on every floor. Doubt is useful. It keeps faith a living thing. After all, you can't know the strength of your faith until it's been tested." We're at the interior of the tiger feeding area. Pa is 12 years old, and Ravi, 14, cross into a drab cement enclosure behind the tiger exhibit. A hallway with closed gates at both ends leads out of the exhibit. Ravi says, "Where's Sylvan? We shouldn't be in here without him." Pie, stop worrying. I've seen him do this 1,000 times. I want to meet our new tiger. He drops meat on the floor by the bars. Ravi says, "Pie." Pie says, "Hello, Richard Parker." We're now in the exterior of the Montreal Street. Pie and the writer walk along a Montreal Street. The writer stares at Pie, bewildered. A tiger? Richard Parker was a tiger? Adult Pie. He got his name through a clerical error. A hunter caught him drinking from a stream when he was a cub and named him Thirsty. Brain tingles. When Thirsty got too big, the hunter sold him to our zoo. But the names got switched on the paperwork. The hunter was listed as Thirsty and Tiger was called Richard Parker. We laughed about it and the name stuck. Ravi says, "Let's go before we get in trouble." Pie says, "I want to see him close up." "You're not a zookeeper. Come on." An adolescent Bengal tiger appears at the other end of the hall. Ravi bolts, running out of the feeding area. Pie is enchanted. He offers meat to the tiger. "That's it, Richard Parker. It's for you." He offers the meat to the tiger. "That's it, Richard Parker. It's for you." Pie holds the lamb through the bars. The tiger walks slowly down the hallway, regarding Pie with a detached curiosity, as unthreatening in his manner as a large house cat. Pie begins trembling from sheer excitement. He doesn't hear the approach of uneven footsteps. Father appears, followed by Ravi. Just as Richard Parker approaches the offering, Father says, "No!" He yanks Pie violently away from the cage, wrenching Pie's hand through. Richard Parker, startled, raises his head, hissing. He turns and bounds back out through the gate at the other end of the hallway, disappearing into the exhibit area. Father spins Pie around and shoves him against the wall. "What are you thinking?" Are you out of your mind? Who gave you permission to come back here? You have just ignored everything I've ever taught you. I just wanted to say hello to him. Tiger is your friend. He's an animal, not a playmate. Animals have souls. I've seen it in his eyes. Father turns to Robbie, who stands by the gates. Father says, "Fine, Sylvan. The exterior of the feeding cages. A short time later, Father, Pi, and Ravi watch as Sylvan carries a goat into the feeding area. Sylvan says, "You're sure, Mr. Patel? Pi's just a kid." Father, "Do it. Go ahead." Sylvan sets the goat down and ties a piece of rope around the animal's neck. Father, to the boys, "Animals don't think like we do. People who forget that get themselves killed. That tiger is not your friend. When you look in his eyes, you are seeing your own emotions reflected back at you. Nothing else." Old Sylvan ties the goat to the bars at the gate where Pi had been sitting to feed Richard Parker. Ravi quietly to Pi, "Don't be stupid. Say you're sorry." Old Mother arrives at the gate with a woman worker and rushes to Pi's side. "What have you done, Prissine? You know what your father said about coming back here?" "I'm sorry, I was..." Mother turns to Father, quietly referring to the goat. "What are you thinking?" "This is between a father and his son. Sylvan, the gate." "He said he's sorry. You want to scar him for life?" "Scar them? That boy almost lost his arm." "But he's still a boy." "He'll be a man sooner than you think. And this is not a lesson I want him to ever forget." Turning Sylvan. Sylvan opens the far gate. Richard Parker re-enters the hallway. He sees the goat and slinks forward, lowering his body, his ears flattening out against his skull. The goat freezes. Everyone watches in silence, transfixed by the intensity of the tiger. Pa watches the animal's spirit glowing up within Richard Parker's eyes as instinct takes over. In a sudden single burst, Richard Parker bolts the length of the hallway, claws reaching out through the bars of the cage toward the goat. We don't even see what happens next, but the family does. We turn back on the cage. Only a few seconds have passed, but Richard Parker has already turned to go back into his enclosure, the lifeless goat in his mouth. The family watches. Father is impassive, Ravi traumatized. Mother wraps her arms around Pi. Brain tingles as we fade to the interior of Pie and Robbie's bedroom. It's morning. A rainy early morning in monsoon season. Pie, now 16, lies in bed reading notes from the underground. Robbie is still asleep. The radio plays in the other room. Robbie's alarm goes off. Robbie reaches to shut it off. We fade to the exterior of Pie's school, Pondicherry, 1977. End of the school day. Pie, in a raincoat, walks out to the street, where student bicycles are lined up by the hundreds. He gets his bike. Things changed after the day of obsolescence. The world had lost some of its enchantment. School was a bore, nothing but facts, fractions and French, words and patterns that went on and on. I grew restless, searching for something that would bring meaning into my life. And then I met Anandi. Clothes on Anandi, 15, radiant, graceful, eyes aglow, dancing with passionate intensity. Adult Pie and voiceover. Mother made me study music, and one day my teacher came down with the flu. He asked if I could take his place one afternoon playing rhythms for a dance class. Pie watches her hopelessly in love, absent-mindedly drumming along. He's drumming for a class of a dozen female students. A dance master accompanies the beat vocally. Tum Takita, etc. The dance master claps her hands, interrupting to teach. No, if you don't concentrate, you cannot express your love of God through dance. Feel the ground beneath your feet. Open your eyes, gaze out onto the horizon. Let that spiritual energy pulse through you and out into the world through Abinea. Anandi, come to the front, lead them. Anandi obeys. Pie watches her, lost in admiration, until the teacher taps a wood block to get his attention. The girls in the class giggle. Pie blushes embarrassed. Tonight's stream, Life of Pie, by Jan Martel, is dedicated to 1111 Code, great friend of mine. He made the awesome suggestion that I read this. I can't thank you enough, my friend. Town Market by the banyan tree. Anandi walks with two of her friends through the town market. Pie hides behind a flower seller's stall. Gathering his courage, he peers out, searching for Anandi. She is nowhere to be seen. He walks into an open area of the market that surrounds a banyan tree. Suddenly, he hears a voice behind him. Anandi, why are you following me? Pie turns. What? You were following me? after a beat to cover his evident guilt. Pa says, "What does this mean?" Pa vaguely imitates the hand gesture, pinching the tips of his fingers together, that he saw Anandi use in the dance rehearsal. Anandi stares at him bewildered. But Pa goes on. "In the dance, you went from Pataka, which means the forest. Then you did this Samputa, which means something that is hidden. And after that, you did this. And then you did Chatura." Pa demonstrates her dancing. Anandi smiles, while her friends giggle at his performance. But Pa goes on. "But at the very end, you did this." He repeats the gesture. "None of the other dancers did that. What did you mean? The god of love is hiding in the forest?" Anandi says, "No. That also means the lotus flower." "The lotus flower is hiding in the forest? Why would a lotus flower hide in the forest?" Anandi blushes. She has no answer. Back at the exterior of the zoo exhibits, Pa and Anandi stand at the Bengal tiger cage. Pa proudly introducing Anandi to the zoo's finest exhibit. "And this is Richard Parker. He's the most magnificent creature we've ever had here. Look at the way he's turning his head, showing off like a dancer." "No, he heard something. He's listening, you see." Pa beams as we fade to the interior of the Patel dining room. 1977, dusk. We see Pa sitting at dinner with the family, a half smile on his face, obviously lost in thought about Anandi. Father's voice gradually breaks through into Pa's consciousness. "So you see, we've talked about it for some time. Do you understand what I'm saying, Pa?" Pa glances over. Says, "Sorry, you've been worried," Father says. "For my family. Our animals are worth far more abroad than here in India. And if the town council stops supporting us, I don't know where we'll be. So, it is what we have to do. Do you understand?" Pa says, "I'm sorry. What are we talking about?" "We're leaving India." "What?" "We are selling the zoo." "The zoo itself was never ours to sell. The land belongs to the town, but the animals are ours. And if we sell them, we'll have enough to start a new life." Pa, "But where will we go?" "Canada. I'll have some new opportunities for work in Winnipeg, and I'll be shipping most of the animals for sale in North America. We can get freighter passage for then the whole family. So it is settled. We will sell like Columbus." But Columbus was looking for India." The exterior of the Pondicherry beneath the pier. Pa and Anandi sit together on the cross beams beneath the dock. Anandi takes a length of colored silken threads, tying them around Pa's wrist to serve as Rocky, a sisterly blessing for protection on his journey. As she finishes, Pa reaches out impulsively to hold her hand. The exterior of the cargo ship deck at dusk. Pa stands at the railing of the cargo ship, staring out at the Chennai shoreline. Mother approaches. Pa, they're serving dinner below. Pa doesn't respond. Mother approaches and stands behind him. Pa-seen, you have a whole life ahead of you. We're doing this for you and Ravi. Come inside and have some dinner. The family stands in the mess hall, lying along with the crew. The French cook, a grizzled and thoroughly unpleasant man, loads a plate and slides it over the counter to Mother. The meal consists of liver and onions, sausages, and rice soaked in gravy. Mother points at her rice. My sons and I are vegetarians. Do you have anything? The French cook ladies pour gravy over her rice. No, not more gravy. Je don't want the gravy. No, I want something vegetarian. The cook takes her plate, sets it on the counter in front of Father. The following takes place in French. French cook, there, no problems. She asked if you had something vegetarian. Vegetarian? The cow that produced this liver was vegetarian. The pigs that went into these sausages were vegetarian. Very funny, but she doesn't eat liver. Then she can eat the sausages, the rice, the gravy, or you can go cook your own food. How dare you talk to my wife like that? The cook shoves a plate of plain rice over the counter. Here's your rice. I cook for sailors, not curry eaters. Father grabs the cook's forearms, yanking him halfway over the high counter. What did you call us? Let go of me. What do you think you are? You're nothing but a servant. I feed people. You feed monkeys. I'll teach you respect. Sailors descend on the two, pulling them apart. A short time later, the family sits eating silently in the aftermath of the scuffle. A Taiwanese sailor comes along Pa carrying a plate of rice with gravy. He speaks with a Taiwanese accent and a gentle smile. Then says, "Hello, I'm a happy Buddhist, so I eat rice next to gravy. On ship, gravy is not meat, it's taste. Okay, you try." Pa smiles in gratitude, but the gravy looks anything but appetizing. He eats a banana from the food set aside for the animals in the cargo hold. He sits next to the transport cage of orange juice. A female orangutan with a baby in her arms. Animal crates and cages. They all surround Pi. The air filled with screeches and growls. Father enters the hold, carrying food for the animals. Don't worry, we'll have plenty of fresh supplies after we stop in Manila. His father mixes tranquilizer pills into the food for the orangs. Pa, why give OJ a tranquilizer? She's not going to cause any trouble. The stress of the traveling is not good for the animals, Pa. And it helps with the seasickness. We don't want to be cleaning up after a seasick orangutan, do we? Pa looks up, notices father watching him. Father tries to smile along with his little attempt at humor, but his manner is stiff. His eyes furtive and uneasy. Adult pie and voiceover. You see, my father was a businessman. He had never handled the animals himself. I realized that leaving India must have been harder for him than it was for me. Adult Pie and the writer sit on a bench in the gardens. Pie has fallen silent, reflective. And the writer says, so? Adult Pie, have I forgotten anything? I think you set the stage. So far, we have an Indian boy named after a French swimming pool on a Japanese ship full of animals heading to Canada. Adult Pie says, yes. Now we have to send our boy into the middle of the Pacific and make me believe in God. Yes, we'll get there. We fade to the exterior, a topographical map of the Pacific. Moving in on the Mariana Trench, an ominous gash of darkest blue. It was 4 days out of Manila, above the Mariana Trench, the deepest spot on Earth. Our ship, the Simpson, pushed on, bullishly indifferent to its surroundings. It moved with the slow, massive confidence of a continent. We dissolved to the exterior of the Simpson at night. Darkness. The faint glow of a nightlight. Close on Pie's sleeping face. The cabin swaying in the storm. Bang. A loud, deep rumble breaks into his consciousness. The ship says. Pie's eyes open. He looks around. Listens. Nothing. He leans over the side of the bunk and wakes Ravi. Ravi, did you hear that? I'm sleeping. It's a thunderstorm. Let's go watch. Are you crazy? We'll get hit by lightning. No, we won't. It'll hit the bridge first. Don't tempt the storm, Pa. The deck of the ship is dark. Pa steps out into a bracing rain and walks to the rail, wind whipping his hair. He laughs, exhilarated, as rain splashes over his face. Throwing arms wide, Pa dances in imitation of a 90s dance, slipping more than once on the rain-soaked deck, shouting in giddy adolescent triumph. He finishes laughing as he falls against the railing. The deck lights suddenly all come at once. A warning alarm sounds over the loudspeakers. Pa stumbles down the tilted staircase. Papa, I'ma get out. Halfway down, Pa hits water. He dives, searching for his family. The hall lights flicker. The passage falls dark on an instant before the emergency lights come on in the water below. Pa dives, trying to swim against the flowing current. He's astonished to find a zebra swimming toward him. He tries to swim further, but the enormous force of rushing water and air is too great. He scrambles backward, groping toward the stairwell. Pa burst on deck, coughing and gagging for air. Somebody help me! He sees movement, animals running. He scrambles towards them, the ship groaning as it lifts sideways. Oxen and deer are visible on the far side of the deck, backlit by emergency lights. Pa hears monkeys screeching, the clatter of hoofs pounding. In the distance, sailors shout orders in panicked voices. The sailors look towards the upper deck. Pa follows their looks and watches in horror as a zebra launches itself over the side of the ship, careening through the air toward the safety of the lifeboat. The French cook staggers backward in safety of the lifeboat. He jumps out of the way, falling to the water below. Pa throws up his arms and the lifeboat starts to drop. The zebra arcs through the air, missing the tarp, landing on the exposed stern with a sickening thud, shattering the rear bench. The force sends the rig lining spinning. The lifeboat plummets to the water below. The impact spins it around, nearly washing Pa overboard. He is left clinging to the back of the tarp, the zebra on the floor of the lifeboat before him. As the lifeboat drops down the side of the swell, Pa slides to the front of the tarp. The Simpson's propeller rises behind him. As Pa steadies himself, the swell lifts the lifeboat, crashing it onto the deck of the Simpson. It drops back into the sea, rolling over completely. The vessel instantly rights itself. The lifeboat is designed to be virtually unsinkable. Pa leads on the lifeboat's floorboards next to the zebra. Pa sees the Simpson at an angle. its bow dipping below the water. As he tries to get up, he notices the orange emergency whistle that dangles from the vest. He grabs it and blows, shouting between blasts, "Help! Somebody help me! Help me!" The deck's light of the freighter glowed with a cherry, unnatural brilliance. By the light of the ship, Pa can just make out a distant figure in the water. "Hey, over here!" Pa spies a lifebuoy tied to a rope. He grabs it and heaves it as far as he can across the water. The lifebuoy splashes a few yards away from the shadowy figure. The moment Pa feels the tug on the line, he jumps into the uncovered part of the boat. Nearly finished, he lifts his hand to peer over the side and sees who he's rescued. Richard Parker. A beat, and then Pa realizes what he's done. He scrambles backward in horror, trying to throw the rope overboard. "No, go away." Richard Parker paddles toward the boat. Pa grabs an oar, wielding it against the approaching tiger. Richard Parker tries to grab the oar. Pa yanks the oar away, falling onto his back. He listens as Richard Parker claws his way up the side of the swaying boat, coughing and gagging water. Pa scrambles backward, oar still in hand. He rises and jumps overboard. Plunging into the rolling water. Silence. Pa hanging below the surface of the water, groping for focus and calm. As the sky explodes in white flashes, the scene is caught in surreal still shots. A hippo swims past, its heavy form moving gracefully. Pa swims toward the camera, then freezes, reacting in horror as a shark swoops past him and up toward the struggling animals near the surface. Pa dives defensively. The camera follows. Ahead, and the Sensum is visible 50 feet behind Pa, its deck lights dipping below the surface. Casting an eerie underwater glow. Bubbles flowing up to the surface nearby. Pa can make out the floating car. He burst above the water in sheer panic, throwing his arms around the oar, coughing up seawater and bile. The life buoy floats a dozen feet off. He swims toward it. He grabs the oar moments before a huge wave sweeps him up and over the lifeboat. He lands on the other side. The oar lost and drags himself onto the stern, where the kicking zebra and scrambles onto the boat's tarp. An oar sticks out from under the boat cover, hanging out over the front of the lifeboat. Pa climbs out on the oar, keeping himself a safe distance from the tiger he assumes is beneath the tarp. The air vibrates with a tremendous belching groan. Pa looks over to the cargo ship, watching, astounded. The storm has passed, but the skies are still heavy with disgusting gray clouds. Pa has hung the life buoy on the oar and now sits on it, slumped in exhaustion and shivering. With what energy he still has, he weeps. His face is puffy and swollen from a night of tears. Pa watches a shark fin knife through the waves. His feet have been trailing in the water. He quickly lifts them out. He raises his head, looking at his new surroundings. Water and air, clouds and sky. Nothing on the horizon. Pa creeps forward on the oar, pulling himself onto the gunwale, the side of the boat. No sign of Richard Parker. The zebra comes into view in the stern of the lifeboat, injured legs folded beneath it, staring differently into space. We cut to the exterior of the lifeboat. Pa stands a few feet away from the zebra, using an emergency bucket to bail out water at the bottom of the boat. Exhausted, he pauses to catch his breath. Then becomes aware of a slight movement at the side of the tarp. A spotted hyena lurches furtively into view from beneath the tarp, then disappears again. Pa freezes, dumbfounded. Harry the hyena, with a sloping bear-like forehead and the nervous manner of a beaten dog, reappears. Pa instantly dives across the tarp. The hyena staggers and stumbles listlessly. Pa turns to face the creature, struggling for calm. The screech of a terrified animal echoes across the water. The hyena looks out to port, the hair rising on his back, then staggers beneath the tarp. Pa squints into the rising sun. An enormous bundle of bananas bobs into view. The bundle twists and rolls in orange juice. The orangutan tries desperately to stay on top. Orange juice, this way. Within moments, the bundle is within reach of the lifeboat. Pa catches the oar handle in the netting that binds the bananas together and pulls it against the side of the boat. OJ falls on board in a stupor as fog. Pa says, "Welcome to Pa's Ark." The netting wrapped around the handle of the oar pulls loose from the bananas, which tumble out of reach. As Pa reels the netting in, OJ moans in distress. Pa throws a banana to OJ, but she is too sick to react. "Where's your boy, Orange Juice? I'll bet Mother and Father found him. They'll all be out here soon." OJ turns to look at Pa. A look of inconsolable sadness in her eyes, as she knows better at what lies ahead. High noon, intolerable heat. Flies circle the zebra, landing on Pa's face and arms. He's too exhausted to brush them away. He pushes himself upright. He calls over the waves. "Hello? Hello? Anybody?" Pa kneels and bangs his bailing bucket against the hole. The hyena emerges, shaking its head violently in an attempt to clear its thoughts. He watches with increasing alarm as the hyena paces in frantic circles. Whatever tranquilizer this animal received are wearing off. The hyena abruptly stops pacing, coughing and retching, then lies down. It sets its head on top of the tarp, predator eyes fastened on Pa. Fading down to the exterior of the lifeboat at dusk. A boy, a hyena, a zebra, and an orangutan silhouetted against the last fading light of day. Check. Pa has hung the paddle and life buoy off the end of the boat and perches on the bow. The hyena eyes seem to glow in the last light. Fixed on Pa, Pa stares back. Pa fights fatigue as waves splash interminably against the hull. He winces at each creak of the lifeboat. His eyes glaze over as he stares out at the endless, dusky seascape. Pa sees movement in the shadows. The hyena attacks the zebra. The zebra barks and squeals. OJ reacts to the violence, crying out. No, stop it, stop it, stop it, stop, no, no. The exterior of the lifeboat at dawn. Silence. Morning. Hazy. Pa slumps over the oar. Eyes half open, glazed. He has stayed up a second night for fear of being attacked, and now he slowly nods sideways, giving in to exhaustion despite himself, and tumbles into the water. I gasp in shock as the water slaps him into full consciousness. He climbs back onto the life ring, coughing, tired, wet, sad, and fearful. The lifeboat rolls and growls beneath Pi's feet as he stares, and then he notices OJ. The poor orang is sitting on a side bench, half hidden by the tarp, and horribly seasick. That poor baby's tongue rolls out of her mouth and she's visibly panting. I'm sorry, OJ. I don't have any seasickness medicine for you. And then it strikes him. Supplies. Pa pulls up the edge of the tarp nearest the bow. A row of benches with hinge lids curve around the bow. Pa opens the rearmost bench and finds a lifeboat manual and navigational guide. Then he finds the life jackets. Sunflower blooms, sunflower blooms. Welcome to the house. And Angela Critters. I'm so happy to see you, Angela Critters. Angela Critters. Read this juicy life, says. Sunflower, I agree, baby. I could use some pies. He tosses one of the life jackets to OJ, who has no idea what to make of it. OJ turns to watch him, utterly bewildered. Pi finishes tying a knot in a piece of rope that joins oars to the life buoy. Pull back to reveal that Pi has built a makeshift raft. He sits back, mopping his brow, then begins pushing and dragging his raft over the edge of the lifeboat to launch it. The hyena comes out from under the tarp to see what all the noise is. As it paces, it gets too close to OJ, who suddenly comes to life. She rises up to the full height, pulling back her lips and roaring. The hair on the hyena's neck and shoulders stands up. It launches in attack. Pa cries out, flinching, but OJ, she uses one of her long arms to thump the beast on top of the head. Pa cheers the blow. But the hyena gets up in an instant. It attacks again, this time going for OJ's throat. No. OJ gets up, pulled down to the floor of the boat. The battle continues out of view. Pa searches through the piles of rope, finding a knife. He rises and dashes forward. Pa reaches the end of the tarp. The hyena retreats. OJ lies in the stern, dead. Pa, in rage, confronts the hyena. Come on! He feels the tarp move under his feet. Suddenly, Richard Parker launches like a blur from under the canvas, going straight after the hyena. Pa falls backward on the tarp, stunned. As the tiger clamps his jaws around the hyena, finishing it off, Pa leaps back to the bow, shoving his makeshift raft into the water. The raft splashes in the water and the tiger turns. Pa looks back and comes face to face with Richard Parker. The tiger stands with front feet on the cross bench, sniffing the sea air, examining his surroundings for the first time. Agitated by this open-air environment. As he turns to go back under the tarp, his gaze falls on Pie. Richard Parker's ears swivel, and his lip twitches, revealing a canine as long as a finger. Pa, terrified, grabs an oar and holds it out, trying to prevent the attack. Unfortunately, he also blocks Richard Parker's path under the tarp. The tiger tries to go around the oar, and when Pa blocks his way, the tiger swings a paw, knocking the oar into the ocean with such force that Pa is spun completely around with his back to the tiger. He falls into a crouch, cowering. Check. He falls into a crouch, cowering. For crying out loud, I can't say that word. Check it, Rita. He falls into a crouch, cowering, prepared to die. Richard Parker's predator instincts take over. He snarls and pounces on the tarp, menacingly close to Pie, then hesitates, unsettled by the softness of the tarp beneath his feet. Pie jumps toward the raft. He belly flops into the ocean and rises in a panic, trying to scramble up onto the raft, only to have it flip completely over his head. Sweet slice of cherry pie. Strawberry cream pie. Gray, lifeless skies above the vastness of the ocean. Pie shivers, his eyes glassy, his lips chapped and skin waxen from hours of exposure. He tries various ways to reshape the raft. A shark slips up alongside Pie and bumps him, sending him scrambling back to the safety of the raft. The tiger is nowhere in sight. Pie quietly climbs on board. He tries in vain to control his chattering teeth and shaking limbs as he opens the starboard bow storage bin. He sees a duffel bag, zips it open, and rifles through the contents. It contains an array of survival supplies. Cans marked with water. He pops a hole in a water can with the can opener and drinks one, tilting his head back and closing his eyes in ecstasy. He grabs a couple of boxes marked baked wheat biscuits. Pie tears open a box and stuffs a biscuit into his mouth. The biscuits are so dry that he is barely able to chew them. A rat skitters out from under the tarp, grabbing biscuit crumbs, then retreating. A low growl. Richard Parker charges out from his den and bounds onto the tarp. Pa staggers in terror and falls helplessly into the storage bench, with only his head poking out over the tarp. Scully Pie. Scully Pie. Scully Pie, says Angela Critters. Some of that scuss. A little test. Mike in Florida. Check. Scuss. Check. Rita, check. The tiger steps toward Pie, then hesitates. Again, the softness of the tarp unnerves him. He steps back off the tarp and paces the stern. Pie creeps out of the storage bench, then watches in horror as Richard Parker swivels and charges him again. This time beneath the tarp. The rat scurries back out of hiding and Richard Parker's head follows, looming up from out of the gap between the tarp and the storage bench. Pie jumps onto the tarp, out of the tiger's reach. Richard Parker scrambles backward and reappears at the far end of the tarp, roaring, prepared to attack from above, then halts, watching in astonishment as the rat hops around the lifeboat. Finally running up Pie's shirt and landing on Pie's head. Pie grabs the rat by the tail and throws it. The rat sails, paws and tail stretched wide across the boat. Richard Parker opens his mouth and the rat flies in, its tail disappearing between the tiger's lips like a spaghetti noodle. As Richard Parker enjoys his treat, Pie climbs backward over the bow, unhooking the rope, grabbing the water cans and the biscuits and slipping over the side, falling into the water. He drops onto the raft and pushes himself back with his feet. The raft floats back and hits the end of the rope line with a jerk. Pie remembers the rope and goes back to untie it. Suddenly, Richard Parker appears at the bow and lunges at him, almost falling off the front of the lifeboat onto Pie. The tiger scrambles back onto the boat and off the tarp, while Pie paddles the raft away. When he is finally at a safe distance, fear and stress overwhelm Pie. He throws up what little food and water he has taken. A full moon, backlit clouds rolling through the skies. Pie floats behind the road. Weeping, surrounded by nothing but terror and the abyss. It is early morning. Angled on Pie, the rafting boat from above, lost on an endless ocean. The bright colors of morning light. Pie has taken out his pencil and now writes on the back page of his survival manual, his voice heard over. My name is Pi Patel. I've been in a shipwreck. I am on a lifeboat alone with a tiger. Please send help. He tosses the bottle as far as possible. It ripples the water and then disappears. A defeated pause, and then Pie looks up and sees the majesty of his surroundings. The cloud cover breaks. Dawn light glows down on Pie. A grunt from the lifeboat. Pie turns surprised. He grabs the tow line and reels in the lifeboat. As he lifts the tarp, Richard Parker's eyes glow out at him from the shadows. He greets Pie with a low snarl. Pie gingerly lowers the tarp and casts the raft back down from the bow. He looks up, in awe, shuddering. I am your God. I give myself to you. I am your vessel. Whatever comes, I want to know. Show me. We fade to the exterior of the raft. Pie sitting on his makeshift raft, flipping through his manual. The fold-out map of the manual shows the ocean's currents. Longitude. Check. The fold-out map of the manual shows the ocean's currents, longitudes, latitudes, and depths. Pie stares at the chart, bewildered by it all. He rises up on his knees, looking out at the ocean around him, then sits back, hand to forehead. We fade down to the exterior of the raft. Montage. Pie struggling on his raft. Pie reading in voiceover. Set your house in order and dig in for the battle to survive. Establish a strict schedule for eating, keeping watch, and getting rest. Do not drink urine or seawater. Keep busy, but avoid unnecessary exertion. The mind can be kept occupied by playing card games. As Pi reads his survival manual, the waves pick up. Somewhere beneath the tarp, the tiger lets out a faint groan of discomfort. Few things can sap the spirit faster than seasickness. Waves are more strongly felt when a boat turns sideways to the current. A sea anchor is used as a drag to keep the boat's head to the wind. Proper use of them can increase control and reduce seasickness during rough seas. Pi takes a sea anchor from inside his life ring and tosses it overboard. As soon as the sea anchor has been deployed, the raft slows down and the anchor lines go taut. For castaways who must share their lifeboats with large, dangerous carnivores, it's advisable to establish a territory as your own. The following course of action is recommended. Step 1. Choose a day when waves are moderate but regular. Step 2. With the lifeboat facing into the waves, making the ride as comfortable as possible, blow your whistle soothingly. Step 3. Turn the lifeboat sideways to the waves, accompanied by a harsh, aggressive use of the whistle. With sufficient repetition, the animal will associate the sound of the whistle with the discomfort of the seasickness. Similar methods have long been used by circus trainers, though they generally lack the rough seas. He reels in the lines, turning the boat sideways to the waves. The rocking increases. Pi blows the whistle several times harshly as the rocking increases. From within the boat, he hears the tiger growl. Pi lets go of the second line, raising his hand with a flourish. The astounding Bengal tiger. He pulls the raft next to the tarp into the lifeboat. The tiger crawls out from under the tarp, violently ill. Hello, Richard Parker. Sorry about the choppy ride. Pi pulls himself onto the bow. Richard Parker tries to lift his head, then groans, giving it up. Pi lifts the whistle to his mouth and blows it repeatedly as he advances to the front edge of the tarp, opens his fly and pisses in a straight line across the midpoint of the boat. You understand? Yours, mine. He blows his whistle. You understand? He steps back to observe the effect of this provocation on the seasick tiger. But Richard Parker staggers to the edge of the tarp. He takes a deep sniff and winces, groaning, his tongue hanging out in the distaste. The tiger turns away from Pie, facing the stern. Pie thinks the battle is won, until the tiger lifts his tail and sprays him with a tremendous burst of urine. We fade to the raft in the afternoon. Scuss, 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 scuss. Scuss, 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 scuss. Pa pulls in the solar still. Pa bends down to suck fresh water from the straw that protrudes from a water still. Delighted to discover that it works. He carefully pours some of the water into a can for himself, then pours the rest into a bucket. Short time later, Pa pulls himself up to the bow of the lifeboat, sets a bucket of water in the boat, and blows his whistle. Richard Parker sticks his head out from under the tarp. Scuss, 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 under the tarp. Here, Richard Parker, I've got some water for you. Pa blows the whistle once more, casting the raft adrift again. Richard Parker sniffs, then begins lapping greedily at the water. We fade down to the exterior of the raft. Insert Pa writing in manual. Text on page reflects Pi's accompanying voiceover. In the zoo, we fed our tigers an average of 5 kilos of meat a day. Richard Parker will be getting hungry soon. Heidi Day. There she is. Heidi Day. And Paul Hedrick. Paul Hedrick. Sagenta. Sagenta. Scuss, 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 scuss. Rita's Juicy Life. Rita's Juicy Life. Rita's Juicy Life. Angela Critters. Angela Critters. tidy day. Jen's aura, Jen's aura, ska, 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 ska. Jen's aura. I love you the most. You're so important to me. Angela Pa chews for a moment, then spits out a blob of biscuit and presses the food ball onto his hook. He savors the crumbs that remain in his mouth. Tigers are powerful swimmers, and if he gets hungry enough, I'm afraid the little bit of water between us won't be any protection. I need to find a way to feed him. God made tigers carnivores, so I must learn to catch fish. If I don't, I'm afraid his last meal will be a skinny vegetarian boy. Pa thinks for a moment. He takes off one of his shoes. Using the knife to cut a sliver of leather off the side. He presses the hook through the leather and tosses it in the water. Pa pulls his fishing line in, the leather is gone. A short time later, Benny Loco. There she is, Benny Loco. Oh, Benny Loco, welcome. Welcome, my dear. I miss you. Happy Valentine's Day. Check. Pa's cut his shoe into a dozen bits of leather and tried fishing several times. Always with the same result. Richard Parker, watching, mops at his jaw to wipe away drool. He's clearly getting hungry. Patience. The exterior of the Lifeboat at dusk. Pa still fishes with no success. Richard Parker stares in the water at the Dorado. He leans over the side of the boat, pawing hungrily at the surface as fish streaks. But the fish elude him. Richard Parker leans out further, striking with both paws, and finally jumps in altogether. Eaten by in the bushes with Johnny Cash. Mike in Florida says, checking it. guys enjoying that? Everything. House of Thrillers. Richard Parker strikes and splashes his fish streak past. Pa grins at the tiger's predicament. But the moment Richard Parker realizes he can't climb back on board, he begins swimming toward the raft. Pa snaps to, recognizing the danger he's in. He reels the raft over to the lifeboat, practically leaping on the bow. As he hauls the raft on board, Richard Parker manages to catch the netting on the raft with one paw. Leans back against the oar with all his weight. He tries to lower the raft aboard. The weight of the tiger tips the entire bow lower in the water. Pa's about to lose the struggle when the tiger's claws rip through the netting, and the lifeboat springs back up in the water. Pa turns, watching as Richard Parker swims up behind him alongside the bow. He digs into the supply box and rises with a hatchet in his hand, crossing to stand over the tiger and blowing the whistle threateningly. Pa pumps the axe a few times, but cannot bring it to himself to kill the check. Pa turns, watching as Richard Parker swims up behind him alongside the bow. He cannot bring himself to kill the tiger. Richard Parker stares up at Pa a long moment, then paddles to the stern, trying once again to pull himself aboard at the other end of the boat. Pa says, "What am I doing?" Pa kicks at the side of the boat in frustration and is surprised to hear a metal clunk. He finds a rectangular aluminum air box used for buoyancy. Pa then pulls the tarp back fully for the time and examines the contents below. As he removes one of the floorboard panels, imagining new uses for the wooden slats, he hears Richard Parker scratching at the hull of the boat. Pa, wait, I'm thinking. We fade to the exterior of the lifeboat at night. Scuss. Pa has tied a bunch of the flotation boxes to his raft and loaded it with all the provisions from the lifeboat. He points a flashlight beam over the side of the exhausted Richard Parker. tiger's face and whiskers just above the surface of the water, scratching at the side of the boat. Pa backs to the other end of the boat, pushing his raft into the water with one hand as he rocks the boat to help Richard Parker climb in. The moment the tiger is on board, Pa climbs onto the raft and pushes off, retreating to safety, blowing the whistle to remind Richard Parker who's in command. We fade down to the exterior of the raft. It is day. Pa removes all the life jackets from under the life ring, stacking them onto his latest raft structure. The empty banana netting now drapes beneath the raft. Pa notices that Dorado are attracted to the net and gets an idea. One of the Dorados gets very close to the net. Pa realizes his opportunity. He hauls in the netting and wrestles the Dorado onto the raft. Pa grabs a hatchet from the raft and strikes the fish over and over again. As the fish begins to die, it flashes all kinds of colors in rapid succession. Blue, green, red, gold and violet flicker and shimmer neon-like on the surface. Pa starts back, watching this colorful display in terrified wonder. Finally, the fish ebbs to gray, lifeless. I'm sorry. Pa is devastated. He weeps, bringing his hands together, pressing them down against his forehead, murmuring a prayer to himself and bowing over the dead fish in abject grief. Thank you, Lord Vishnu. Thank you for coming in the form of a fish and saving our lives. Thank you. Pa reels himself over to the lifeboat. He moves around to the side of the boat. He grabs the Dorado by the tail and throws the entire fish over the side and into the stern. It lands with a thud. And from somewhere inside the boat, Richard Parker lets out a grunt of surprise. After a moment, Pa hears the wet mashing noises of the tiger devouring the fish. We fade down the exterior of the raft at night. A full moon All around the raft, the green surface of the water glows with millions of flecks of glowing plankton. Beneath the surface, fish swim past at multiple depths and in multiple directions. Pi brushes his fingers over the surface of the water. The surface ripples where he touches it. The plankton glowing more brightly. The effect moving outward and downward through the water. An ever-expanding ring. Pi hears a faint, rapid succession of blows. He peers into the encroaching darkness, but can see nothing. Richard Parker's nowhere to be seen. The blows stop and Pi returns his attention to the light show below. Pi senses movement deep within the water. A cone of rushing energy pressing up toward the luminescent surface. The glowing silhouette of a huge creature wrapped in phosphorescent plankton. A humpback whale streaks to the surface nearby. Its mouth gaping, 50 feet in length. It thrusts itself up into the air. Pi barely has time to react, grifting the check. Pi barely has time to react, gripping the raft and holding on for his life as the whale comes crashing back down into the water. We fade down to the exterior of the raft, late afternoon. A calm day, gentle waves, afternoon, the sun beating down. Pi wears his shirt wrapped around his head to hold off the heat. He says in a voiceover, hunger can change everything you ever thought you knew about yourself. Reaches down with his knife to scratch into the hull. There are 38 scratches on the side of the lifeboat. He glances down, staring longingly at the fish that swim beneath the raft. Reaches out with the boat hook to try to snag the gaff. But it is hooked deeply within the tarp. He lays the boat hook on the tarp and climbs on board, crawling forward to free the gaff. Pie reaches out with the boat hook to try to snag the gaff, but it is hooked deeply into the tarp. He lays the boat hook on the tarp and climbs on board. Richard Parker's head pops out from beneath the tarp only a few feet away. Pie winces, prepared for the attack. In an instant, he's struck hard across the face. A stunning blow that sends him to the tarp. He opens one eye. Richard Parker hasn't moved. Pie looks down. A slender gray-blue fish with wings is flopping on the tarp. Pie has been hit by a flying fish. Richard Parker has seen the flying fish as well. He rises to his haunches. Pie grabs the flying fish and tosses it to Richard Parker. Here, it's yours. The air around the boat whirs to life as they are struck from all directions by a school of flying fish. It descends on them like locusts. It is a feeding frenzy. The ocean boils with jumping fish and snapping jaws. Richard Parker becomes totally absorbed in the kill, leaping, blocking, and batting down as many of the fish as he can. Pie sees Richard Parker's head swivel in his direction. In a moment of insanity brought on by hunger, Pie reaches back and grabs the boat hook from the tarp, shoving it aggressively into the tiger's face just as Richard Parker launches forward. The boat hook catches Richard Parker square in the mouth. The tiger staggers back in shock and growls in outrage. Pie raises up to his full height, staring directly into the tiger's eyes and shouting in fury, his gaze wide, his posture defiant. Mine, mine, ah, ah. Boy and tiger face off for several seconds, both panting, neither blinking or showing fear, as the rain of fish gradually slows around them. Richard Parker turns his focus from Pie and takes in the situation around him, realizing that he stands up to his knees in a pile of flying fish. He turns his attention to a more convenient meal. We fade down. We fade down. To the exterior of the raft. It is sunset. Pie takes small pieces of tuna and gingerly raises it to his lips, tasting flesh for the first time. pause as he savors the taste, considering, and then hunger takes him over. He grabs at the tuna, stuffing pieces in his mouth, devouring it. I love you, darling. I love you the most. You're so special to me. I love you. Pie crosses the tarp, approaching Richard Parker with his new training stick. The tiger backs off as Pie approaches, curious and annoyed. Pie uses the stick to probe into the tiger's territory, testing his limits. Richard Parker gets angry, batting at the stick. Pie looks away, tries again, then turns to face Richard Parker, who growls, angry, and begins batting at the stick. Pie says, "No!" Pie gives the tiger a stern glare. Richard Parker stops, stares back, and backs off. Pie says, "Good." Pie reaches into a pouch behind his back, taking out a piece of fish. Places it on the end of the stick and reaches out, offering it to Richard Parker, who sniffs the air. Pie puts the fish on the bench. Richard Parker eats the fish, then backs up, growing calmer. Richard Parker stares at Pie. Pie raises his arms and yells, chasing Richard Parker around the bench under the tarp. Yes! Pie sits. The battle's over. Eric Garcia. Eric Garcia. Check Eric. Scuss, 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 scuss. Eric Garcia. Eric Garcia. Check. Benny Loco. Benny Loco. Benny Loco. Jen's Aura. Jen's Aura. Jen's Aura. Scuss, 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 scuss. Angela Critters. Angela, the sun is high. Pie raises the adjustable canopy he has rigged on his raft and sits beneath it. He feels the wind on his face and watches Richard Parker lounge in the stern of the lifeboat. Pie smiles. For a moment, genuinely happy. to the Life is Good montage. Pa trims his fingernails, a fishbone toothpick in his mouth. A school of dolphins, hundreds of them, pass in the distance, the blue sea rolling. Just beyond the school of dolphins, something else catches Pa's attention. A freighter, much like the Simpsons, is within a few miles of their position. "Hey, we're over here, we're here," he screams to no avail. Pa scrambles to the storage locker, pulling out the flare gun. He loads and fires. The flare arcs high up in the air. A miniature white star leaving a bright trail of fire and smoke as it falls to the earth. It's grown noticeably darker. The freighter is far off now. We fade down to the exterior of the lifeboat. Months later. High-angle book cover shot, looking down on the boat, adrift in the middle of the ocean. looking down on the boat. Pi's curled up on the tarp. Beneath the boat, the ocean swirls with traffic, including an enormous whale shark. It passes beneath the boat, the creature's form blotting out the depths. The paint on the boat has become sun-bleached and weather-beaten. Pi's hair has grown. His skin is darkened from olive caramel to cocoa. Richard Parker gazes into the distance. Pi stares intently at the tiger. What are you looking at? Tell me, what do you see? The tiger turns and looks over the side of the boat into the water. Pi rises and looks over as well. Staring at his own reflection in the water and traveling downward through the schools of darting tuna, squid and lanternfish, plas, fleeting memories of a storm, and zoo animals struggling to survive. Yes, struggling to survive in that churning water and into the darkest recesses of the sea. Pi finding a broken ship and memories of a former life lying dormant on the ocean floor. Richard Parker looks over at Pi as he gazes into the water. We cut to an extremely wide shot of the boat floating in a sea of stars. And Pi writing in voiceover. Words are all I have left to hang on to. Pi's fingers tremble as he writes in his manual. The tiny cramped letters barely legible. Every white surface of the page cover. Everything mixed up, fragmented. Can't tell daydreams, night dreams from reality anymore. The lead in this tiny stub of a pencil runs out, worn to a nub of wood. We hear a distant rumble of thunder. Pi raises his head. Dark thunderclouds rise up from over the horizon, blackening the heavens. Another rumble of thunder. This one closer. Pi says, "Storm, storm, Richard Parker." Pi begins quickly stowing his gear in the storage bench beneath the tarp. Richard Parker flees to the safety of his den under the tarp As Pie stows gear, he remembers his manual and takes it out from his waistband. The manual is gone. A stunning display of clouds and lightning fills the sky. As Pie looks on in awe, the sky lights up, a vivid white splinter of lightning crashing down from the sky, puncturing the water near the lifeboat. Praise be to God, Lord of all worlds, the compassionate, the merciful. A wave washes Pie off the tarp and onto the floor of the boat. Pie climbs onto the bench. He looks up in wonder at the sky, overwhelmed by the magnificence of the rolling clouds. It's beautiful. Where are you, Richard Parker? You have to see this. Come out, Richard Parker. Come see the hand of God. Don't hide yourself. He's come to us. It's a miracle. A huge wave envelops the lifeboat, submerging the craft completely, and then the boat pops up to the surface like a cork. Pie resumes opening the tarp. He tears it aside, exposing the terrified animal to the storm. And see God, Richard Parker. The sky lights up all around them. The tiger begins roaring. Pie turns to face the storm. Why are you scaring him? I've lost my family. I've lost everything. I surrender. What more do you want? Thunder, rain, and surf hammer the tarp from above. Pie pulls himself under the tarp. Richard Parker's grunts and labored breathing can be heard. The man and beast are only fully visible when lightning strikes. Pie trying to stay as far away from the tiger as he can manage. But before long, the storm is tossing Pie and the tiger as though in a washing machine. Pie wakes in the sloshing water under the tarp. Sunlight filters in from above. The storm is past. Richard Parker lies listlessly on the side bench. The gentle sound of water lapping at the side of the lifeboat. The breeze rustling the tarp. Time has passed. Pie lies in the bow, exhausted, delirious. He pulls himself upright, takes a drink of water, and looks around, confused. Richard Parker lies in the stern of the boat, severely emaciated. His coat dull, his eyes clouded, shivering. Pie uses the last of his strength to drag himself over to the tiger. The animal's body is curled, his tail flat. Some of his fur has fallen away from his shoulders and haunches. He's a skeleton in an oversized bag of fur. Pie reaches out to place a hand on the tiger. He gently touches him one spot. We're dying, Richard Parker. I'm sorry. Pie sits and places the tiger's head on his lap. Appa, Robbie, I'm happy. I'm going to see you soon. Can you feel the rain? Richard Parker raises his head slightly. His tail twitches. God, thank you for giving me my life. I'm ready now. We fade down to the exterior of the lifeboat, the island at day. Pie lies unconscious in the bow of the lifeboat. Waves lap at the side of the boat, which presses against the shore of an island. A gust of wind blows across Pie's face, tousling his hair. Pie gradually opens his eyes. He tips his head back. Pie's point of view above and behind him, the tops of trees. Pie turns, looking at the island, amazed. The trees have a pale bark with an amazing profusion of leaves, their color burning with a neon-like intensity. Pie turns back to look at the stern. He calls under the tarp. Richard Parker. Pie climbs the ridge on unsteady legs. A forest comes into view. with nearly symmetrical ponds dotting the island here and there, many of them reaching 40 feet in diameter. Half the island seems to be covered with meerkats, thousands of them standing together in groups all over the island. The moment the first of the meerkats notices Pie, it turns and stands on its hind legs, and the others immediately follow suit. Pie walks beyond the throng of meerkats toward a pond. He hears a commotion. He lifts himself up to peer over at the meerkats. In the distance, Richard Parker blazes a trail through the meerkats, catching, pinning, and eating as many as he can. Pa smiles, watching the tiger. Later in the day, Pa sits cradled in a nest of branches. He's rigged a hammock. As the last of the rays of the sun disappear, he hears a commotion below on the island and pushes aside branches to see better. The meerkats are abandoning the ponds. They're running for the forest. Their collective stampede noisier than a herd of elephants. Richard Parker, in the meantime, runs for the shoreline, scrambling down the ridge as fast as possible and leaping into the lifeboat. Neo's garden. Neo's garden. Welcome, buddy. Neo's garden. I see you, Angela Critters. And I see you, Benny Loco. And I see you, Sagenda. Sleeps, nestled in the branches of the tree. He fights off the meerkats. Hey, get away, this is my bed. He is amazed to discover that what he can see of the island from his perch is bioluminescent. The leaves of the tree around him and the seaweed below all glow in gentle greens, while the ponds beneath seem to shimmer like liquid silver. It is a scene at once beautiful and threatening. Pa hears a burbling noise coming from the pond at the center of the tree. He looks down. Fish bubble to the surface. One of the larger fish writhes in agony at the surface before falling still along with the others. Pa watches as the water below begins churning with the bodies of the dead fish. The surface of the water a swirl with the flash of fins. Then gradually the fish begin to disappear. We fade down. The exterior. Up in the tree at night. Pa notices fruit growing on one of the branches above his head. He looks around at the rest of the tree, but the fruit only seems to grow along one branch. Pa plucks one of the fruits and examines it. Each stem that he pulls causes a leaf to peel off. He reaches the center of the ball, peeling back the last of the leaves to reveal a tooth. As we flash forward to the interior of Pi's home in Montreal, it is late afternoon. The writer says it was a human tooth. Adult Pi, don't you see? The island was carnivorous. Carnivorous, like a Venus flytrap? Yes, the whole island. The plants, the water in those pools, the very ground itself. During the day, those pools held fresh water. But at night, some chemical process turned the water into those pools into acid. Acid that dissolved those fish, that sent the meerkats scurrying into the trees and Richard Parker running to the boat. But where did the tooth come from? Years ago, some poor fella just like me must have found himself stranded on that island. And like me, he thought he might stay there forever. But all that the island gave him by day, it took him away again by night. To think how many hours he spent only with meerkats for company, how much loneliness taken on. All I know is that eventually he died, and the island digested him, leaving behind only his teeth. I saw how my life would end if I stayed on that island, alone and forgotten. I had to go back to the world or die trying. We fade down to the exterior of the island. The lifeboat at day. Pa loads the boat with water and meerkats. The tarp is piled high with roots and seaweed. I spent the next day preparing the boat. I filled my stores with fresh water, ate seaweed until my stomach could take no more. And I brought as many meerkats as I could fit into the storage locker for Richard Parker. I couldn't leave without him, of course, and it would mean killing him. lifeboat at sunset. Pie and the tiger watch as the island recedes into the distance, lit by the late afternoon sun. No one has ever seen that floating island since. You won't read about those trees in any nature book. And yet, if I hadn't found those shores, I would have died. And if I hadn't discovered that tooth, I would have been lost, alone forever. Even when God seemed to have abandoned me, He was watching. Even when He seemed indifferent to my suffering, He was watching. And when I was beyond all hope of saving, He gave me rest and gave me a sign to continue my journey. We dissolved to the exterior of the Mexican coast, the jungle. Yes, we're very close to the end and I'm whipped. What I just read, man, I appreciate you guys, all the support that you give me from the bottom of my heart. I'm so tired right now. I really am. It's been a tough week. It really has. Pie leans over the side of the lifeboat. He falls overboard. We follow him underwater. His feet hit a sandy bottom. By the time we reached the Mexican shore, I was afraid to let go of the boat. My strength was gone. I was so weak. I was afraid in that 2 feet of water, so close to deliverance, I would drown. I struggled ashore and fell upon the sand. It was warm and soft, like pressing my face against the cheek of God. And somewhere 2 eyes were smiling and having me there. An empty coastline, nothing but sand, rocks, and jungle. Pie struggles to bring the lifeboat ashore. Richard Parker is hiding under the tar, nowhere to be seen. Pa pulls the painter line until the boat is on the bench, then collapses on the sand. He hears Richard Parker come in a moment before he sees him. Pa turns, looking up as the tiger jumps over the boy, stretching in the air above him and landing in the water ahead of him. I was so spent I couldn't move, and so Richard Parker went ahead of me. Richard Parker walked along the beach, his gait clumsy and uncoordinated from so much time spent at sea. Richard Parker stops, staring ahead into the forest, his back to the boy. Pa watches the tiger from behind, Richard Parker's ribs gently rising and falling as he smells the jungle air. At the edge of the jungle, he stopped. I was certain he was going to look back at me, flatten his ears to his head, growl that he'd bring our relationship to an end in some way. But he just stared ahead into the jungle. We fade down to the interior of Pa's home. Adult Pa singing, and then Richard Parker, my fierce companion, the terrible one who kept me alive, disappeared forever. Pa lies on the sand a few yards from the water. A group of 6 Mexican locals hurry down to the beach to him. Pa sobs uncontrollably as they carry him to safety. I wept like a child, not because I was overwhelmed at having survived, although I was weeping because Richard Parker left me so unceremoniously. It broke my heart. Fade to Pa's home. It is near sunset. Adult Pa. You know, my father was right. Richard Parker never saw me as his friend. After all we'd been through, he didn't even look back. But I have to believe that there was more in his eyes than my own reflection staring back at me. I know I felt it, even if I can't prove it. I just wish. You know, I've left so much behind. My family, the zoo, Anandi, India. I suppose in the end the whole of life becomes an act of letting go. But what always hurts me the most is not taking the moment to say goodbye. I was never able to thank my father for all I learned from him, to tell him that without his lessons, I would have never survived. And I know he's a tiger, but I wish I'd said, it's over. We've survived. Thank you for saving my life. I love you, Richard Parker. You'll always be with me. May God be with you. The writer shakes his head, astonished. I don't know what to say. Hard to believe, isn't it? It's a lot to take in, figure out what it all means. If it happened, it happened. Why should it have to mean anything? Well, some of it's pretty incredible. Check. Well, some of it's pretty incredible. Pa nods, a half smile, then rises, crossing to the bookshelf. Pa takes a tattered notebook out of the bookcase. They had insurance claims to settle, and they wanted to find out why the ship sank. They didn't believe me either. Pa hands the notebook to the writer. On top, there is a newspaper article with the headline, "Boy Rescued. 227 days in the Pacific." The writer unclips the article, revealing the insurance report beneath. We hear Okamoto's first line over the report. Okamoto says, "Thousands of meerkats on a floating carnivorous island, and no one has ever seen it?" Young Pie, yes, just like I told you. Chiba, bananas don't float. Okamoto, why are you still talking about bananas? Chiba, you said the orangutan floated to you on a bundle of bananas, but bananas don't float. Okamoto, are you sure about that? Young Pie, of course they do. Try it for yourself. Okamoto, in any case, we are not here to talk about bananas or meerkats. Young Pie, I've just told you a long story. I'm very tired. Okamoto, we're here because a Japanese cargo ship sank in the Pacific. Young Pie, something I'll never forget. I lost my whole family. I just don't know why the ship sank. I was asleep. Something woke me up. It may have been an explosion. I can't be sure. And then the ship sank. What else do you want from me? A story that won't make us look like fools. Okamoto, we need a simpler story for our report. One our company can understand. A story we can all believe. Chiba gives Pie a glass of water. So, Pie says, a story without things you've never seen before. That's right. Without surprises, without animals or islands. Yes, the truth. We fade down to Pie's home in Montreal, where the writer says, "So what did you do?" I told him another story. 4 of us survived. The cook and the sailor were already on board. The cook threw me a life buoy and pulled me on board. Mother held on some bananas and made it to the lifeboat. The cook was a disgusting man. He ate a rat. We had food enough for weeks, but he found the rat in the first few days. And he killed it and dried it in the sun and ate it. He was such a brute, that man. We had food enough for weeks, but he found the rat in the first few days. We would have died. The sailor was the same man who brought rice with the gravy, the Buddhist. We didn't understand much of what he said, only that he was suffering. I can still hear him. The happy Buddhist who only ate rice with gravy. He had broken his leg horribly in the fall. We tried to set it as best we could, but the leg became infected, and the cook told us we had to do something or he'd die. The cook said he'd do it, but Mother and I had to hold the man down. And I believed him. We needed to do it. So I kept saying, I'm sorry. But he just kept looking at me. His eyes so, I'll never understand the point of that man's suffering. We didn't save him, of course. He died. The morning after, the cook caught his first Dorado, and I didn't understand what he'd done at first. But Mother did, and I'd never seen her so angry. Stop whining and be happy, he said. We need more food or we'll die. That was the whole point. What was the point, Mother asked. You let that poor boy die in order to get bait. You monster. The cook got furious. He started towards her with his first fist raised, and Mother slapped him right across the face. I was stunned. I thought he was going to kill her right there. Cook didn't stop at bait either. Sailor, he went the same way the rat went. The cook was a resourceful man. I thought he was going to hit me again, but then Mother started pounding on him with her fist and screaming, "Monster, monster!" She yelled at me to go to the raft. Nepota, I thought she was coming with me or I'd never have. I don't know why I didn't make her go first. I think about that every day. I jumped over and turned back just as the knife came out. There wasn't anything I could do. I couldn't look away. He threw her body overboard. Then the sharks came. I saw what I saw. The next day I killed him. He didn't even fight back. He knew he had gone too far. Even by his standards, he left the knife out on the bench. And I did to him what he did to the sailor. He was such an evil man, but worse still, he brought the evil out of me. I have to live with that. I was alone in a lifeboat drifting across the Pacific Ocean and I survived. After that, no more questions. The investigators didn't seem to like the story exactly, but they thanked me. They wished me well and they left. The writer says, so the stories, both the zebra and the sailor broke their leg, and the hyena killed the zebra and the orangutan. So the hyena is the cook, and the sailor is the zebra. Mother is the orangutan, and you're the tiger. Adult pie, can I ask you something? Of course. I've told you 2 stories about what happened on the ocean. Neither explain what caused the sinking of the ship, and no one can prove which story is true and which is not. In both stories, the ship sinks, my family dies, and I suffer. True. So which story do you prefer? Check. So which story do you prefer? The story with the tiger. That's the best story. Adult pie, heartfelt, thank you. And so it goes with God. Ryder, he pauses and looks up. Mama G was right. It is an amazing story. Will you really let me write it? Adult pie, of course. Isn't that why Mama G sent you here after all? They hear a car pulling into the alleyway alongside the house. My wife is here. Would you like to stay for dinner? She's an incredible cook. I didn't know you had a wife. And a cat and 2 children. So your story does have a happy ending. Well, that's up to you. The story's yours now. The rider smiles. Outside, car doors slam. We hear voices. Pie's wife and children cross around to the front. Pie rises and moves to the door. The rider glances one final time at the report. He flips through the page and hesitates, reading the last few lines aloud. Mr. Patel's is an astounding story of courage and endurance, unparalleled in the history of shipwrecks. Very few castaways can claim to have survived so long at sea, and none in the company of. He looks up at Pie, an adult Bengal tiger. We have a guest. Let me introduce you. The rider stands and faces Pie. We see his point of view on Pie, holding his daughter in his arms, surrounded by his family, smiling. As we dissolve to the exterior of the Mexican coast, the jungle. Young Pie's point of view on Richard Parker, from behind as he stares into the jungle. The tiger's ribs gently rising and falling as he smells the jungle air. And then he walks forward and disappears into the swaying trees. The moment that the tiger is out of view, all the color of it drains out of Pie's world. His views of the trees lose all dimension and fades to black and white as we fade to black. The end. I'd like to thank you guys for sticking it out with me. Night Owl Warriors. I'm so tired. Scuss. Check. Scuss. Check. Angela Critters and Benny Loco. Rita's Juicy Life. you so much. I love you guys. Thank you for believing in me. Such and